it wasn't until 1270 that the first college was founded. That was Peterhouse College. Today there are 31 that make up the university, and we'll be seeing 8 of those along the river.
You should search the question that you're going to ask.
I think Oxford University was founded in the 1100s, and it was actually a result of an incident that occurred over there that caused Cambridge University to receive a royal charter. So some students of Oxford University, who would have been priests, as these were the only people that could read or write, were actually accused of the murder of one of the townsfolk in Oxford's daughter. And so they were obviously treated very hostilely, and they sought refuge over in Cambridge. So the college was founded in order to provide these students with a safe place to stay and study.
Is that where the rivalry comes with the boat race?
Yeah, well, I think that rivalry just builds up and up with sort of the academic competition as well. And, we don't like to give it too much credit, but we have to, unfortunately, for the founding of the university.
Ayan, shout out Jens. So my question kay Jens daw. Ayan. Magtanong kayo guys, type nyo kung anong tatanungin natin itong tour guide natin.
Founded in 1448 by the wife of King Henry VI, Margaret of Anjou.
What do they do in Queen's College?
So that's actually sort of one of the common misconceptions about it all. And in my head it makes sense as well that a college, you'd have a designated college per subject.
Yeah.
But the college is actually just sort of a place for accommodation and, you know, which sports teams you represent and stuff like that. And then you go and study across all the different faculties across town.
Oh, okay.
Hindi ko na napalitan, na mo na mamaya napalitan. Paano ba palitan yan? May title na JL lang.
That would make sense.
Yan yung bridge siya sa hindi pala to. Later.
What's the name of this bridge?
Sorry?
What's the name of this bridge?
This is King's Bridge.
May tilapia dyan daw.
Coming up on our right, we've probably got the most picturesque site in the whole of Cambridge here. That is King's Chapel there of King's College.
Baka may linta nga dito eh.
The college there itself was founded about 7 years earlier than Queen's in 1441 by King Henry VI, a year after he had founded Eton School, and he'd done all of that by the age of 19. Anyone know the original purpose of Eton School?
Ano siya? King's College.
Very
King's
different
College.
to what it is today.
Comprehensive.
They have what, sorry? Oh, do they? Oh, wow. Well, it was initially started to educate orphan children. Yeah, King's College was seen as the place where these would get the same further education.
You can stand up.
Oh, does it?
I told you. No. Yeah. Stand up.
Oh, God, that's
Take
very
a
cool.
photo
They
of
managed to
in
keep
my
it like that. So, did it ever sort of deviate away from that, or?
Ibang view naman, oh. Mamaya ko na i-edit yung title niya. Iwan.
Right.
Ano bang title niya?
Yeah.
Windy Casadias. Hindi na ko kasi sa YouTube.
Right. Because kings did sort of deviate, and at one point it became almost ridiculed for giving out what they gave.
So may sarili
called a
akong
gentleman
vlogger ngayon.
one not really on academic merit, but more on sort of, you know, your manners and your... Yeah, and so people say it's almost gone full circle, and it's got the highest acceptance rate of states to applicants out of any of the colleges here in Cambridge.
Pagman sa video may pinuhinyo dyan mamaya.
So is this like accommodation, do you say?
So the chapel there is a chapel,
yeah.
And then the building next to it is accommodation for all the professors. But then the building you've got over there is accommodation for the students.
It's like going to Hogwarts.
It is, isn't it?
It all works like it. So do a lot of professors stay on campus then? Like when, like accommodation wise?
Puro ulap ba?
A lot of professionals, did you say?
Professors.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've got the option to stay there in the Gibbed Building.
Okay.
So I think lots of them do take up that opportunity, but
Yeah.
Ayan.
Diyan tayo galing.
Yan natin tour guide.
So we're now in the area of the oldest college along the river. It's Clare College, founded in 1338 by a very wealthy lady named Elizabeth de Clare. This is actually where one of my favourite Cambridge alumni studied. David Attenborough studied natural sciences here. So,
Ganda yung view. Pag hinarap ko yung camera, ganda ng legs.
This is where we go kanina. This one.
Oh, nasa likod ko yung nagsasalita. Yeah, wait, maybe I can use my stick then.
Mind the people that video mo.
Ayan, may bagong member tayo. Sino yan, guys?
Oh, we could have gone yung tayong dalawa lang. Kailan to may magkakakar nga tayo.
and the area of Trinity Hall here, founded 12 years on from
Ayan,
Clare.
kaway-kaway mga fans
1350.
namin dyan. Ayan, hello!
Ayan,
sabi na sa'yo.
Of course, the Black Death, which killed off 50% of the English population, but particularly affected those that were by the deathbeds of the sick. So these would be people like priests and lawyers, and it was the Bishop of Norwich, William Bateman, that took him upon himself to found this college in order to reinstate people into these positions. We probably will, if someone can cough up the funds.
Si Bien Magno, bagong members yan.
So the most famous student who studied here was the late great scientist Stephen Hawking.
Is any famous celebrity been studied here?
Was the film, Theory of Everything?
Yeah.
Was it filmed?
Yeah, lots of it was filmed around here. My friend, funnily enough, when he moved house, he realised that the person he was rented off, their surname was Hawking. And then when he moved into the house, there were all of these sort of handles and stuff, which were it was actually Stephen Hawking's house that were used to sort of help him move around. Yeah.
How long was he at Cambridge for, like working as a professor? It must be.
It was a long time because lots of my friends had seen him around sort of the area where we left off, Mill Pond, and then a little bit further on there's an area called Newnham. That's where he lived for pretty much all of the time.
What's the name of this bridge?
Sorry?
What's the name of this bridge?
This one's Trinity Bridge.
This is the one that Nana's talking
We
about.
leave Trinity Hall, we're now in the area of Trinity College here. This was founded in 1546 by King Henry VIII himself. Now, due to its sort of royal beginnings, it's actually gone on to be the wealthiest college in the world today, with a net worth of £1.5 billion. It owns the O2 Arena in London, along with being a majority shareholder in Tesco's supermarket.
Interesting.
So potentially, as a result of that, it's also gone on to be the most successful, with a total of 34 Nobel Prize winners. Students here include Isaac Newton, Ernest Rutherford, the man who first split the atom. Then there was
Tatanong kung kailan magbe-break
and
yan
there was
nasa
Prince
harap
Charles.
niyo.
Now, when Prince Charles arrived here, he said he wanted to be treated just like
Ano
everybody
naman,
else. So just like everybody else, he arrived on the
ampalaya
laundry
na naman
service
kayo
by
dyan ha.
in his own private helicopter.
Walang ampalaya dito ha.
And then swam across here.
Yeah.
Dito nangarap mag-aral si April. Pero hanggang pangarap lang. Yan na ba yung university? It's quite hot.
Did Charles stay here in accommodation with him?
I'm not actually sure where he. I imagine he wouldn't have accepted the standard accommodation.
That's true.
Oh, was he? And he was staying in this. No, yeah, of course.
Wambu, kumusta? Hi tita, kumusta? Ayan, kumusta? Ayan.
Yeah.
Magkano sa kayo dyan? Magkano ba? 60 pounds, dalawa kami. So yan. 30 pounds yung isa. Hello, who's yan? Sabi ni Dewey. Ayan. Actually, kanina nanonood kami nung hindi pa kami sumakay. Mayroong natumba, yung nagkayat na ganyan. Yung ikaw yung magkakayat sa sarili mo. Natumba yung matanda. Kaya ayaw ni April na kami yung magkayat.
Especially you have your laptop.
Yeah. Ayan, nasa London talaga yung future wife nyo. Makipag-chat kayo ng mga taga-London. Toink. Siya daw sabi ni Briggs. Ayan. Tuki. Oh, nasa ganun na nga. Tapos 45 to 1 hour minutes. Ayan. So, ito naman yung bridge na putol.
Is this part Trinity as well?
No, we're now moving into St. John.
Oh, this scary.
Founded in 1511. Initially, the idea for the college was that of the grandma of King Henry VIII, Lady Margaret Beaufort. However, she tragically passed before she could complete the founding, so it was left to her
Patingin
great
nyo yung
friend
kasama
and
nyo
the
kung
tutor
ilan
to King
kayo.
Henry VIII,
So, bali,
John
10.
Fisher.
10 yung isang 10 isang ride. 6 sila dyan sa harap na pamilya. Tapos 2 dito sa harap namin. Plus, dalawa rin kami. Plus yung operator na taga-vlog ko.
Mind the
11.
close.
Ayan. So, kapag kayo yung magkayat ng sarili nyo, mas mura siya. 12 pounds ata isa pag kayo.
He was exiled from the UK by Oliver Cromwell due to his religious belief. He then went across the pond to, of course, found Harvard University. Now, amongst his cohort, there was another man. He took the St. John's symbol, the goat-like animal you can see up there, which is actually a mythical creature called a Yale, and went on to found Yale University. There was also John Dee. He was assigned on spying missions across the whole of Europe at the time, and he was the 7th minister to Her Majesty. So to report back from these missions, he'd sign off his letters with some glasses to show that he was spying, and then his minister's number, the number 7, which of course looked like 007, and inspired Ian Fleming's James Bond books.
It's got some history.
We learn about history now. So what's that sign in there?
Cannot hear you. You need to speak up.
Speak up there. Which building is that?
This is the library that was built in 1624. It's a very old library of St John's.
St. John's.
Are all students allowed access to like any book they want, or does it have to be?
What, as in students from different colleges allowed access to the other libraries? Yeah, no, I think they are.
Ayan guys, so nakalibre na kayo ng virtual tour. Baka ito yung future wife mo, Brex, ayan hanapin mo ang kanyang Instagram.
Well, we're still in St John's. They're actually long-standing rivals. Now this is because the founder of St John's, John Fisher, opposed King Henry VIII's idea to reform the church. And as with anyone that crossed paths with King Henry VIII, he then ordered his execution. Now, the man to carry out the arrest and execution was King Henry VIII's Lord Chancellor. He was called Thomas Audley, and he was gifted Magdalen College that we're just about to come to as a reward for this.
Which one was he gifted? Sorry, this.
So we're coming into Magdalen.
Yung katabi ko,
And it was, you'd see the spelling of it,
matagal
and
na
you'd think
panahon
it'd
pa
be
yan.
called Magdalene. This is because when he was given it, he wanted to call it Audley College, but they didn't allow that. And then he wanted at least the sort of sound of his name to be in it. So he's got the AU sound in Magdalen.
Wambu, ayan. You like my shed? My shed is just only the fries
So it
na
sort of continued
baklaran
in
to.
its
Baklaran lang to,
controversial life, as
changi-changi.
it was actually the last college in Cambridge to
Changi-changi
accept
baklaran lang
female
yan.
students.
Ito naman salita.
Now, when it finally did so, only 40 years ago in the 80s, the male students of the college actually marched through the centre of town carrying a coffin, claiming this was the death of education.
Dagsapre.
It's just ridiculous.
That's an intense protest.
And that was only 40 years ago. Sorry? Has it been what, sorry? I'm not sure. Murray Edwards is that. There's definitely a few that have stayed sort of single-sex colleges. I'm not sure.
Sige, mag-migrate ka na dito sa London, Toink. Magmatsyag sa video para sa hinyo.
Gonna be a bit of a bump there.
This year, Cambridge won. We've got a varsity match, big rugby match between the two universities.
What's the pizza? Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I remember. Nung we went to Edinburgh. Then, pumunta kami doon sa may pizzeria.
Pabalik na tayo?
Yeah. Pizzeria. It's like, it's the best of the best.
Are we going back now?
See, that was...
That's not 45 minutes.
It's already 30 minutes, you silly.
What?
See you tomorrow.
Ayan, Maxine, hanapin mo na yung Instagram niya. Tamzak Omayuri, ayan.
So the bridge we're going under now is Magdalen Bridge. This is actually on the site of where the first bridge in Cambridge was, which was initially called the Granta Brugga by the Vikings, meaning the Great Bridge. And
It's
over the
built
years,
in
this has translated
1825,
to the
look.
Canterbury, and then the bridge
It's
over
in
the
there.
river Cam.
1825. Host, andito may. Ayan. Andito na ba si host? Andito may. Ayan.
So, hindi ka nag-strike yard.
Not sure kasi na may signal o wala. Magmatsyag sa video para sa hinyo.
The building we've got just there, the red brick building, is the Lutyens building, student accommodation here at Magdalene College.
Wala pa saan dito may. Nasaan dito may
Lang,
nangingisda.
ito maingay, parang alam ko yung papakinggan ko dyan sa video yung mga
Review mo na lang. Review.
There's only a 30-year age difference between these two buildings, the Lutyens and the Cripps building. This was actually the first computer-aided design in the whole of England, designed by architects Powell and Moyer.
So designed by a computer.
Yeah, it was the first building designed using CAD, computer-aided design.
it's a bit wrong.
Kind of weird, you can sort of tell.
Yeah,
it's
it was
not
just
straight
blocks.
lines.
What year was that?
The 60s. I'm not sure if you can tell or not, but Powell and Moyer, the architects, they're actually better known for their work designing multi-storey car parks in London.
So is this accommodation then?
Yeah, student accommodation at St John's. And moving on, we've got the new court of St John's, more student accommodation, built in 1831. So they started this build a year after Trinity had finished their new court, and it was an attempt to one-up their rivals Trinity. So there'll be a university team, but then there'll also be like intercollegiate sport events, so then you represent each of your different colleges. The bridge we've got just here is the Bridge of Sighs, initially named the New Bridge, as it was built alongside the new court. But there was a partially Queen Victoria whose eyesight was diminishing, who thought it reminded her of the Bridge of Sighs in Venice. Now, for those of you that have seen that bridge, it actually bears very minimal resemblance. The resemblance comes from the fact that the Bridge of Sighs in Venice takes people to their execution, but the Bridge of Sighs here in Cambridge takes students from their accommodation to their exam results. Now, this is also on the site of where my favourite Cambridge student Frank. So some St John's students stole their master's car from the centre of town. They then punted it down on 4 punts similar to the one we're on today and suspended it from the bridge using cable wires. Now there is actually an image available of this online, but the master of the college, he wouldn't have needed this as he lived just beyond those gates over there in the master's lodge.
What happened to the students after that?
I'm not sure they ever found out who they were.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it's just post-it notes on the window.
So as we come out of this picture, I find this really hard to describe. Just on the left, sort of on the archway here, right here to my left, there's the flood marks of where the tallest ever flood of the River Cam was, but in 1947. So yeah, as I was saying, the St John's New Court was built in an attempt to rival Trinity. They actually tried so hard they almost bankrupted themselves, which explains why in the centrepiece of the main tower there, you can see there's a missing clock on the clock face, which is because they ran out of money.
They still like
No, I think there's like all the sort of protection laws on the building. I mean, they can't do it.
Right-hand shoulder. You get to see the new.
Cool.
There's a baby shark. Baby shark.
So, fun fact about the St John's students. For a while, they were actually the only other people other than the Queen that were allowed to eat swan. St John's students, yeah.
O, da jijila kainit at nga nagpapinyatan na.
Look.
What?
Nothing.
Tilapia.
No, this is but like it will take you to somewhere. No.
Kuna no good morning aji.
No morning. That's why no morning.
So no morning, only afternoon.
It's not morning, it's morning.
Oh. Look at that. Ikaya mo nagyubing tapos napataw. Dapat aso dan eh.
Yeah, no. Got sunscreen. You put sunscreen.
Huh?
You put sunscreen.
Sunscreen.
Yeah, I did.
You do?
I did.
Quite a few colleges open for people until Hannah to wander out.
There should be, but it just keeps changing with COVID and everything, and then sort of staff getting pinged and told they need to isolate. The building we've got there to my left is the Wren Library of Trinity College, designed in the 1700s by Sir Christopher Wren. He was also very famous for his work designing the St Paul's Cathedral in London.
How do you see that? Ooh.
This building is seen as a particularly impressive design due to its efforts in protecting the books. So on the top floor there you can see there's a green tint in the glass. This is actually moss that's installed in the windows in order to protect the books from UV damage.
Palagi yung sinasabi yan.
Such great lengths to protect the books is there's some incredibly important books stored within. So there's the first edition of the Principle of Mathematica, written by Isaac Newton. First editions of Shakespeare, but then also
So,
the
pinag-iigid
most
na
important
nagtatakder
of
gayon.
all, A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh.
Tanong ma-balance.
Pero dati yung driver ta kag-iigid mo kayong pagtaktadaran daw. Ay nga ta.
Kasi no, dito na
You ever
ikat
see like the builders go up? 'Cause it must have taken a fair time to like build. Like you know, with like loads of old buildings, it's like 200 years to build like the big cathedrals.
Right, yeah.
Did he see the finished design?
Christopher Wren.
Yeah.
That's a good point, actually.
It seems like these have taken ages.
Because there's the King's Chapel that we'll see once we go past it again. That took 90 years to build, and sort of 3 kings were involved in it. But I'm not sure about the Wren Library and Christopher Wren.
Yeah, no. It's meant to look like it.
Nagwapo daw yung nasa sango. Ayan, Ilocano rin pala itong si Greg. Ilocano ka ba,
got it.
Greg?
Like, perfect. Perfect shot.
Nagwapo din nasa sango. Ayan, oh.
Madim.
Madikano, oh.
Ni? Ay, gitu to.
Ilocano din pala itong si Brex. Si Uwo. Paano ba sabihin niya? Lagi niyong sinasabi yung Uwo.
Anong oh? It's like amazing.
Yuwo. What? How do you pronounce that? Yuwo? Uwo?
It's like being just amazing.
Ayan yung gwapo daw, oh. Ano, Brex?
May naintindihan yan kasi
Guwapo Spanish.
Yeah.
No.
Chapuli. Kalokohan.
So just ahead of us here, we've got the newest bridge along the river. That's the Garrett Hostel Bridge, built in the 60s. It's the one public footpath along the river.
Ayan, si Wambu. Mas gwapo daw si Wambu. Ayan.
Privately owned, yeah.
Akyat ka nga sa screen mamaya, Wambu. Ayan.
And so next to it there, we've got the newest building along the river there, the Jarwood Library, built in 1998. It's actually designed to look like the front of a ship in order to pay respects to the fact that Trinity Hall have contributed significantly to maritime law. It's also, in my opinion, one of the better efforts of modern design that blends in with the rest of the architecture.
Yeah, that's... May tao kanina nag-ano.
Punta tayo diyan kanina.
Yeah. Punta kanina. Oh no, someone stepped on my shoes.
Oops. I told you don't use white shoes.
It's okay.
Oh, akyat ka mamaya nga sa screen, Wambu. Tignan natin ang iyong kagwapukan, Wambu.
So you guys are the lucky ones this year. You get this absolutely stunning temporary bridge,
Akyat ka ng ligaw, baka ikay maligaw-ligaw.
which is actually used to complete the renovations over there at Clare,
Taga saan si
as
Brex?
they're no longer able to get sort of heavy vehicles and heavy materials across Blair Bridge, which is the oldest bridge along the river, the only bridge not to be knocked down by Oliver Cromwell and his men, where they used King's Chapel as a garrison during the English Civil War. So due to the heavy usage that it got during that time, you can actually see on the right, well, my right most archway, you can see the keystone is crooked.
Ano? Nabiyag ka pa eh.
Wait, I just share this.
Na-interrupt yung video mo doon. Yun yung gwapo, sabi ko. Ay,
Well,
yun oh, yung nagtutulak. Hindi siya. Diba? Asa na kaya yun? Akala ko yung tutulak.
ang init, Lawking.
Can I stand up? Charot.
Umayuri, looking
Pwedeng
for
tumayo?
papa. Tumayo ka.
Pwede kaya?
Yun
Tanongin mo ah.
Hawakan kita. O taga Pangasinan ka rin, Brex? Saan sa Pangasinan? Ikaw ba yung Brex na kilala ko? Taga Pangasinan din kami, nalubat na tayo
Yeah,
guys.
King's Chapel there took 90 years to build, and today is the third largest chapel in the whole of Europe.
Open to the public.
Yeah, they quite often have people visiting on the land out here, and you used to be able to go inside, but I'm not sure if you still are. So the building next to it there is the Gibbed Building, designed by architect James Gibbs. This is actually the inspiration behind the design of the first White House in America.
Bilyasis. Ayan, ginasidag tayo gayam. Bilyasis. Taga San Nicolas kami ba? Water? No, I told you to buy before. I don't. Hello all, si Janet Iglesia. Hindi ko alam kaninong team ka. Nag-member ka, Janet Iglesia. Kanino ka ba? Kaya ba isang
Most
player na
famous
ganyan?
student here at King's College is a man named Alan Turing. Have you all seen The Imitation Game? Documents his life as the first man to invent the computer and then also cracked the Enigma code during World War II. So his life came to a tragic end when he committed suicide by poisoning an apple and biting into it. And it's sort of unconfirmed, but it's rumoured that this went on to inspire the design for the Apple brand made by Steve Jobs.
Oh. We still need to go back sa ano. Sa city. Kung alam mo yung sa Sarah? Doon
To our
yung bus
left
stop.
here we've got Bodley's Court, which is the most luxurious student accommodation along the river, where unlike my sort of prison cell of a first year accommodation I got up in Leeds, students would have 3 of these windows per one person.
Wow.
We've just gone down from Leeds.
Have you?
We went to uni in Leeds, yeah.
Were you at uni of or Beckett?
We were back here.
Yeah, I was Beckett as well. Which accommodation were you in?
I was in Sugarwell Court, which was really bad. That was like...
Do you know Mill Street?
Yeah, I know Mill
Yeah, that's where I was. We got there and the sort of security guy said that it was made of the same cladding as Grenfell.
It's just what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome. Yeah, slightly different to the Beckett vibe.
So there's, in my opinion, a fairly large drop-off in the quality of building here as we go to the Erasmus building, student accommodation at Queen's College. This was designed by a man named Sir Basil Spence in the 50s. He said it was designed to mirror the image you get of the trees on the other side, but to me that link is fairly tenuous, and the only bit that I can make out is the sort of columns at the bottom there.
Can you hear
the trunks
your
of the
name?
trees.
What did you say? Philly? Filipinian. Ayan, shout out Darius Landingin. So natuto na tayo sa history dito guys ha. May exam tayo mamaya guys ha.
Oh.
So now to my right we've got the second building designed by the car park architects Powell and Moyer. The Cripps Court built in the 60s.
Hindi pwede maligo.
That one.
More accommodation.
More student accommodation again, it's not one of my favourite ones.
Bit lean.
Ang dumi ng tubig oh, hindi pwede maligo.
Sorry?
Shout out mo daw si Darius
I
oh.
think it's 21,000 at the Uni of Cambridge,
Shout out.
and there's Anglia Ruskin as well.
Unlike any other university, do you pick where you want to go, what accommodation you live in?
Yeah, but you also have to apply to the college.
Right, okay.
So you don't just apply to Cambridge University, you apply specifically to which college you want.
Oh, then the accommodation comes.
Yeah, and
There's
then
certain ones
and then
like that.
yeah. And so here to my left we've got the oldest building along the river. It's the President's Lodge of Queen's College, built in the early 1400s. So we've got the mathematical bridge here, designed by a student of Isaac Newton's, William Etheridge. And the initial bridge was actually designed to support itself with no nuts or bolts.
Sakit sa mata.
But that edition of the bridge just simply blew down the river.
Ay,
The
wag
version
kayo.
we see today is the third attempt.
Hindi nyo pa alam
in
yan kung may
1903
jowa.
by William
Kaibigan
Sidney.
lang yan.
Patatapos lang nila ng uni.
Oh, mga magkaibigan, normal lang yan dito yan, ganyan. Baka mamaya hindi mo alam eh. Ako din pa shout out din kay April. Shout out mo daw si ano? Wambu.
Shout out Wambu.
Ayan, shout out Wambu. Sino ba kasi si Wambu?
Alam mo kung ano yung tawag doon sa ano? Sa yung tube na ano ng water sa Tagalog. Wambu, tubo.
Tubo. Nagets niya yung ano, joke niya, Jarios. Yung tubo na dinadaanan daw ng tubig. Pag dalawa tubo.
So the anchor pub we got there
Pag
to my
isa,
left
wambu.
is one of my favourites in town. It's actually the place where Pink Floyd played their first ever gig in the 60s. Oh, nearly got up too quick there.
May palaro ba ngayon, host? Oo, ang magho-host si host yun at andito may pagwala akong signal kasi nandito ako sa ano, ibang planeta, guys. At yes, may cashback po lahat ng mag-member ngayon. Last day ng may cashback, guys.
And then we've
So,
got the
members
eighth
na
and
kayo
final
din.
college that we'll see along the river over there. That's Darwin College. It's the youngest college along the river as well. Founded in 1960 by 3 other colleges, Trinity, St John's and Gonville and Keys. As it was deemed there was a requirement for more research professionals after World War II. So it's a postgraduate college only.
Lalaki ng pabo dito. Ay, hindi pala pabo yan. Anong tawag yan?
Gansa.
Ganzo. Ganzo, ganza. Paglalaki, ganzo. Paglalaki, ganza.
Sila kayin nga agkay ka. Ito manin nagwanan. Ano siya team maas-as siya.
Ganito ang kulay ng baka. Ayan.
They're allowed just to sort of free roam along there, and then they can get across to Newnham Park as well.
Bakit ako walang cashback, sabi ni Janet. Hindi ko nakita nung Janet Iglesia, hindi ko alam nung nag-member ka kung kailan ka nag-member. Ayan. Naka-offline ata. Offline nung nag-member ka. Ayan. So patapos na yung aming tour, guys. So may 11 thumbs down daw. Ayan mo yung 11 thumbs down na yan. Hindi yan kawalan sa ating ano. Kikitain. Marami talaga ano nag-thumbs down ngayon pag nag-live ako. I think yun yung mga ano tinitira natin mga ninja. Yung pasok ng mga ninja pero hindi naman sila nagme-member. Ayun. Simula nung sinabi namin ni Hosiems at andito may na bawal na isali sa pag-games yung mga ninja. Ayan, nagsimula na sila.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much
Thanks,
for coming.
Thank you very much.
Ayan, so tapos na. Say thank you, guys.
That was great. Thank you very
Cheers,
much.
guys. See you later. Thank you.
Oops, daisy. Ayan, thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's nice to see them left it.
Scudamore, oh. So there we go na. Tapos na kami. Ngayon punta kami sa bahay ng aking kaibigan kung saan may birthday at makikain. Dahil wala na kaming pirang pangkain. Pinangkayat namin yung 60 pounds, guys. So, ayun lang yung napunta yung 60 pounds. Magkano yung 60 pounds sa Pinas? 5,000 na yun. Yeah? Yeah, now is 69. Yeah. 69 ngayon ang palit. What? Yeah, but why? What color you want to paint?
Takto sa amin tayo.
Ayan, Skoda more daw. More. Skoda pa more. Ayan, magmatsyag ha. Magmatsyag. Ayan. Para sa atin exam mamaya.
Hi guys, you punting today?
Now we're going to walk to the bus stop.
Matoldingan sila.
O ayan, confirm, magjuwa nga. Ayan, palubat na ata tayo, guys. So mag-off muna tayo. Ayan, buti pa dyan, walang face mask. So open na dito ngayon, guys. Free face mask na kami. Pwede dalawa ipamember. Yes, Janica, pwede yan, walang problema. Dalawa rin yung magiging entry mo sa bawat rulita natin. Ayan.
Dito na din tayo dumaan. Diretso na to.
Ulamin daw yan magjowa. Huwag kayo, sa Pinas lang yan. Dito madali lang palit-palitan at wala silang pakialam. Ayan mga nag-thumbs down dyan, mabilis ang karma daw, baka madapa kayo balang araw. Baka yung mga nag-thumbs down, yung mga ano, hindi nakakaintindi ng English, nagalit sila doon sa tour guide natin, hindi nila naintindihan. O yung galit sa history. Diba? Alright guys, so i-off ko muna kasi hindi ko alam kung marami din mando dito. Mandurukot. Ayan. Saka kailangan kong gamitin yung aking ano guys, wish. Ayan. I-check ko kung saan kami pupunta yung postcode guys dahil first time namin pumunta sa bahay ng aking kaibigan. Ayan. Na magbus. Handa na daw yung manikin, ayan, at needles, ayan. Sige, kulamin mo yung mga nag-thumbs down dyan, Yuri. Ayan. Ayan, sa Pinas pre-COVID, okay? O sige, bye-bye muna guys, ha? Maya-maya ulit, abangan nyo yung live streaming natin with StreamYard kay Hosiens at Andito Me. Ayan. Salamat. Sana mag-review kayo para sa ating exam mamaya. Ayan. At sa mga gustong mag-members guys, ngayong araw na lang yung last ng ating cashback. Ayan, may cashback lahat ng mag-member ngayon. At lahat po ng members nyo, pwede nyo i-members kahit ilan ang account nyo, ilan ang ninja nyo, pwede nyo i-member lahat. Tapos, ang ina-accept lang ng ninja doon sa ating palaro, ayan, sa roulette at mga bingo at kung ano man yan, ay yung mga members na ninja. Ayan. Kaya maraming nagta-thumbs down guys kasi yung mga hindi members na ninja hindi na namin tinatanggap. Ayan. Kaya nagagalit sila. Ayan, tawan-tawa si Rowena. Ayan, pwede na ba akong mag-newscaster ng balitang amyanan? Ayan. Sige guys, maya-maya ulit tayo at hanapin namin yung bus ng aming sasakyan natin. Isang oras pa ata yung biyahe namin pupunta doon. Pero pag ready na si Hus, Andito Me at saka si Hus Jens, pwede nilang umpisa ng ating StreamYards bingo at papasok ako pag na-signal na ulit at battery ang aking mobile legend, mobile cellphone Toink. Babush, bye-bye. Salamat Maxine, ingat-ingat din. Ayan, pamember na dalawa, yes, Janika, ayan, Janika. Yes, pamember mo lahat ng ninja mo kung gusto mo at lahat yun may members, may cashback at entry mo sa rolita at mga pag-games natin. Ayan, thank you, bye! Oops!